Hello, I'm Craig and this is Mark, and we're going to be explaining to you, or try to present anyway, the notion of the literacy completion points in Florida and how they're reported, as well as the commensurate part of that is called the educational functioning level, and the gains derived from those two and how they're reported to the NRS. This is a tough one.
Yeah, well, it can be. I think it can get the relation. It's mainly the relationship between LCPs and EFLs. It's not, each of them is relatively simple to understand. It's then how they interact and how they're reported and used. Right. But we'll give it a try. We often get questions about literacy completion points. Weekly. Or LCPs, particularly in relation to NRS reporting. And some folks are concerned because LCPs are not referenced in NRS reports. And so there's this notion that not all of their completions are being counted. And right. I mean, NRS is a national entity. I mean, it's a national reporting system. That's what it stands for. So it cuts across all states that are receiving federal money for adult education. So an LCPs is a peculiarity of Florida. And so we hope this segment will clear this issue up by explaining what LCPs are, how they're reported, and how they are used in funding and accountability. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth about funding because that is very much a moving target. Every year, every legislative session, there are changes. So that's going to be glossed over pretty much. And then educational functioning level, or EFL, will be explained and contrasted with LCPs to better understand both concepts.
Awesome.
EFLs represent tiers of literacy skills in adult education. Each adult education course a student takes is linked to a particular EFL based on the skill level of the student upon entry into the course. This is initial functioning level. And that initial functioning level is reported to the state, giving us a baseline for each course. In adult education, there are 4 EFLs for each of the 3 skill areas: reading, language, and mathematics. Students are placed in EFLs in adult education through pre-testing, and each EFL is represented by a range of scale scores. This line represents assessment scale scores in one skill area, math for the sake of example. It is divided into 4 segments, each representing an ABE EFL. If a student's score is on this point in the scale, the student should be placed in the intermediate high EFL. Adult ESOL students are also pre-tested to determine initial EFL, of which there are 6. Students should be tested in each skill area, reading and listening, for which there is an approved assessment. This line represents assessment scale scores for ESOL. It is divided into 6 segments, each representing an ESOL EFL. If a student's lowest skill area score is on this point in the scale, the student should be placed in the low intermediate EFL. Adult secondary students include adult high school students and general educational development students. Pre-testing for these programs is used to place students in one of 2 educational functioning levels: low, which is grade levels 9 and 10, or high, which is grade levels 11 and 12. If a student is tested in multiple skill areas, for example, reading, math, and language, the lowest score should be used to determine initial functioning level. In this example, the student would be placed in ASE low because the lowest score, in this case reading, falls in the ASE low range. To review then, educational functioning levels represent ranges of literacy or numeracy skills. A single student may be at different educational functioning levels for each skill area within a program. For example, an adult ESOL student may be low intermediate in reading and high beginning in listening. An ABE student may be in beginning basic in reading, low intermediate basic in math, and high intermediate basic in language. When ABE and ESOL students are post-tested, the scores should be compared to the pre-tests to determine if the student has moved from one EFL to another. When a student attains the highest score in the EFL range of a skill area, the student should be reported with a literacy completion point, LCP. So the LCP is just an instance, it's a marker for when a student passes a threshold to another educational functioning level. Adult high school students are not post-tested to determine LCPs. Instead, they are awarded LCPs for each course they complete, and these are reported using two-letter codes that identify the course subject area. Students in general educational development are not post-tested either. Instead, they earn LCPs by passing GED subtests, each of which has a one-letter LCP code when they're reported to the state. So, EFLs are ranges of literacy skill, and LCPs are instances in which a student has met the threshold of a higher EFL, in the case of ABE and or ESOL, or passed a course or GED subtest in the case of adult secondary education.
Now, that being said, how do LCPs and EFLs translate into policy for Florida?
Well,
we often hear complaints about it. I mean, you're not counting all of my LCPs is one of the most common things we hear, and it's weird how that works. But
yeah. No, I hear it too. I get the same. I get the calls as well, and hear it at meetings. And in some cases, it's true. In NRS reporting, we count the number of students with at least one completion, not the total number of completions. For example, we count ABE and ESOL students and the number of them earning at least one LCP, making them completers. If a student earns multiple LCPs during the year, the student is still counted only once as a completer. There's nothing wrong or invalid about this approach, but since it is counting students and not completions, it's not accounting for all of the gains made by students earning multiple LCPs. This is, however, the only way to calculate a completion rate. That is, what percentage of your students earn at least one LCP. In other cases, the state might count the total number of LCPs for a report to capture all the learning gains that are made, but that's just not the way we do things with NRS. Okay. So, if I may, let's review once more EFLs, ranges or bands of literacy skill. LCPs are earned when a student tests out of an EFL, in the case of ABE and ESOL, or earns secondary credits or passes GED subtests in the case of adult secondary. NRS calculates the percentage of students making at least one EFL gain in their program, not the total duplicated number of gains. So that ends this segment, and if you have any more questions, please contact the Division of Career and Adult Education. The contact information is provided here, and staff will be happy to help you. So that ends this segment, and thanks for watching.